Well, well, well. There is no end to the volume of materials we have had to read in 2024 and continuing. The latest document that is occupying my attention and more of my attention is this report of the Integrity Commission concerning irregularities in respect of a construction of a residential development located at don't even know how to pronounce this properly, if it's Wycliffe Close or Wycliffe or Wycliffe, Beverly Hills, Kingston 6, contrary to the terms of the building permit issued to Estate Bridge Holdings Limited by the KSAC. And I'm fascinated with this on a number of levels. I must tell you that I do not believe I have yet made conclusions on this report in totality, or indeed on sections of the report. In fact, let me begin right here, which is the Director of Investigation. If one looks and doesn't even go beyond the executive summary, one sees where the Director of Investigation says, whilst planning approval and building permit was issued for the construction of 4 semi-detached townhouses in 2 two-story buildings consisting of 2-bedroom units. At the commencement of the investigation, the erected development consisted of 4 4-bedroom units. At the commencement of the investigation. So, for those who do not know, and you should know by now because of the play it has had in media, apparently on the 11th of July 2024, the Director of Investigation lifted himself from his office and made an unannounced visit to the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation the day after he had a report from an individual who is unnamed, and rightly so. And the report, which was made to the Integrity Commission, was that property owned by the Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness was being built contrary to whatever permits were given by the KSAC. That is the report that they had, that property owned by Andrew Holness was doing that. So they got the report on the 10th of July. By the 11th of July, the Director of Investigation found himself at the KSAC to make some inquiries. And based on the chronology as is laid out, not only did they go to the KSAC, but they made an unannounced visit to the Wycliffe Close property in Beverly Hills. And when they went to the Beverly Hills property, remember now that this is unannounced. They present some pictures to us where they say some demolition work was taking place or some walls were being removed. So it is not a case, it seems to me, where the Director of Investigation visited the site and made some preliminary assessment, and as a result of the visit, a subsequent visit revealed that they started breaking down walls. That is not the case. When they went there, some demolition work was going on. However, a lot of people were interviewed, and as a result of the interviews, those things are laid out, and I really hope to read it again and to read some portions for you, because the building contractor, who is said to be one Mr. Nesbeth of KNN Designs, he was interviewed. Kenardo Nesbeth. And Mr. Nesbeth is quoted as saying, "I am the contractor, architectural designer and owner. I officially started my business in 2015. Before 2015, I was an architectural assistant at the UDC. I am the designer and contractor for the development. I was approached by the young lady by the name Sijaya Anderson on my company's Instagram page." And he goes on, "I made an assessment based on the communication with Miss Anderson and advised her that based on the size of the land, it can accommodate 4 townhouses with 16 habitable rooms." So this concept of habitable rooms is something that is going to be walking, sometimes silently, through portions of this report. Is a habitable room one and the same as a bedroom? Anyway, Mr. Nesbeth continues, "She advised she was interested in the project, and I sent her a quotation. When it comes to architectural works, we provide an invoice for works to be done. The client agrees, make a deposit, and it goes on. I designed the building plan for the development for submission to the KSAC. Each unit would consist of 4 habitable rooms, a pool on the split level, 4 bathrooms, laundry, and storage area. I wish to state that a habitable room in any space can be inhabited by a person, such as a living room, dining room, bedrooms. In the development at 2 Waycliffe Close, there are 4 habitable rooms per unit. 1 is located at the split level, 1 is on the ground level, which is the living and dining area, and 2 are on the first floor, which are 2 bedrooms. Each unit consists of a total of 4 habitable rooms, and 2 4 habitable rooms are bedrooms, which equates to a total number of bedrooms per unit is 2. So Nesbeth goes on and he states categorically, at no point was the construction in breach. I can strongly and blatantly deny that at no point was an explanation given to officers of the Integrity Commission that there was a construction of 4 bedrooms and walls were being removed to conform to an approved plan of 3 bedrooms. I also did not give an explanation that the walls were being removed to comply with the approved plan of 3 bedrooms. Inspectors from KSAC visited the development about 3 or 4 times. They visited at the pouring of the foundation and also to inspect the slabs at different intervals. I was there on one occasion when the inspectors of the KSAMC visited. At no point in time throughout the construction was I ever informed that there was a breach of the approved building plan by officers of the KSAMC. The Director of Investigation interviewed a gentleman who is a director of the entity, Norman Brown. They interviewed him within the context of this particular investigation, but crucially, the statement that they're using against Norman Brown is a statement he made on the 4th of December 2023 when they were investigating Andrew Holness's statutory declarations. They asked him about the development in that particular investigation, and I think we have to go back to it to figure out what is the relevance of this particular statement that they are now using in this report. What was the relevance of it in the statutory declaration investigation? In that investigation, they say Norman Brown, a director of Estate Bridge, told them the property consists of four bedroom townhouses and it is located at Wycliffe Close. I am unsure of the exact date it started. It may have been sometime in 2020. However, the project is 75% complete. Based on my investment, I have assumed a supervisory role. However, the project is managed by Mr. Nesbeth, whose statement I just quoted for you. And it goes on. Then they say, on October 31 of this year, when he was then interviewed within the context of the Wycliffe Close property, he was asked what is the composition and the layout of the proposal submitted to the KSAMC in respect of that development. And he said, I was not involved then in terms of the application. I became aware of the scope of the thing when I became an investor in the project. As far as I know, the scope of the project is 4 townhouses consisting of 4 habitable rooms, which would include 2 bedrooms in each unit. So they questioned him to say, how is it that you said one thing in 2023 and then the next thing you're telling us now? And I believe he said he made a mistake in calling them bedrooms in 2023, and what he ought to have said is habitable rooms. The Director of Investigation, having spoken with members of the KSAMC and who have jurisdiction to go on to view, to inspect and to make notes, he puts down 3 individuals, field officers, who said they went to the premises. And in fact, I must tell you that based on this report, the 3 people who went there, one went when the steel, the construction was just being put up, and I think before the concrete even poured, and another one went sometime thereafter. That wasn't really when the construction was far advanced. And the other one, there was no decipherable date as to when he actually went to the premises. But whichever time they went and said there was no breach of the approval given to Estate Bridge, it doesn't appear that what they did at the time was satisfactory. So the Director of Investigation disregarded what those field officers reported as being the state of compliance with the license as given. And having disregarded those, based on what they say they saw when they went, when the construction was in progress, they then juxtaposed Norman Brown's 2023 statement against his 2024 statement. And then they also put that against the developer's statement, the contractor, Mr. Nesbitt, and came to the conclusion that the statements by both Norman Brown and Nesbitt, they were designed to deliberately mislead the Director of Investigation concerning the development. And as such, they found the development to be in breach of the license and the permit granted by the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation to Estate Bridge. First thing, is this construction now complete? And if it is not complete, has the KSAC, through any individual, perhaps through the Chief Engineering Officer, has anyone visited the premises since the last visit of the field officer by KSAMC? And if a visit was done, was a report made on the actual state of the construction vis-a-vis the permit that was granted? And if a report was done, are there material deviations from what was actually permitted? And if so, has there been an order served on Estate Bridge for correction to be done, or has there been an application subsequent to whichever field officer's appearance at the site? Has there been an application by Estate Bridge for any kind of variation or amendment of the term of the permit that they got? And if so, can all of that information be released to the public? Because what gives me quite a bit of concern about this report, which I'm still reading and digesting, is I do not understand how one can come to a conclusion on something that it appears that it is still incomplete, and you based your conclusion on what you saw when you went at the start of your investigation. This is something completely different from what happened in the Mark Barnett case, you know. Because the Mark Barnett case, there were many instances where the field officer from NEPA, when he went there, he noticed that the construction was not according to what was permitted, one. And two, there was evidence in that case that based on the drawing submitted to the KSAMC by the licensee, something quite different from the actual drawing submitted and approved was handed to the developer for the developer to construct. So there were two completely different drawings that were involved in that particular construction. So that when the field officers went, what they saw were things being done pursuant to not the one that was approved, but the second one that was given to the developer. And the breaches were acknowledged by the field officers, but they didn't do the follow-up to bring the licensees to book. So the construction continued, and even when the construction continued, there was no application for variation based on what was actually constructed. In this matter, as far as I see, and I stand ready to be corrected, the construction is not yet complete. And if it is not yet complete, is it that the KSAMC's monitoring responsibility, that responsibility is also continuing? And since the last field officer went, did any other person go? I understand that Mayor Andrew Swaby of the KSAMC requested more than 48 hours ago a report from the Chief Engineering Officer on this particular project. And I do hope he now has it in hand and that he's ready to share that with us so we can understand where they stand. Yeah? Because I don't understand. I don't know that I'm able, even at this time, to accept the accuracy of the conclusions because of where this construction is actually at. So a lot more is needed, a lot more is desirable, and a lot more should be produced as we continue to watch and to monitor this particular matter. We're joining Mr. Marlon Morgan. Morning, Mr. Morgan.
Hi, morning, Mrs. Shields. Let me say good morning to your listeners on the sound of RJR.
Good to have you. Remind me, what is your title?
Well, I am touching base with you this morning in my capacity as a member of the Jamaica Labour Party's Communications Task Force.
Yes, and tell me, what is it you want to communicate this morning?
Well, Jamaica, having regard to a report of the Integrity Commission that was tabled in the Parliament on Tuesday. It would have been dispatched to Parliament the week prior, but it was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. And we saw considerable reportage across media in respect of that report. And at the vortex of the report is the name Andrew Holness. And among other things, reports across media have essentially had the effect of maligning the Prime Minister.
Into Imperium, but it will remain in an entity called Estate Bridge, which was also incorporated in July of 2020. That's correct.
That is correct, Mrs. Shields.
So,
Emily.
So let me just make the point. So you are making the material point to be the date on which the Integrity Commission received the complaint, but shouldn't it be perhaps the date on which Estate Bridge applied for permission from the KSAC? Yes, go ahead.
I am the one who introduced in this conversation at the very outset a particular antecedent, which is what you have reiterated just now.
Yes.
I said that in a dispensation past, meaning I am acknowledging the proximity and association between Andrew Holness and the entity dubbed Estate Bridge.
Yes.
So just to be clear, at a point when this development would have been conceptualized and so on, Andrew Holness would have been associated with the entity Estate Bridge.
Yes.
By October of 2022, however, his interest in the outfit would have ceased to exist. He would have relinquished his stake, having passed his shares to his son, young Adam Holness, and essentially divested himself of an interest in the entity. So I didn't seek to start in July of 2024. For absolute clarity, I situated in this conversation the very antecedent that many persons would observe having regard to the DI's report and are mindful of. So we're not seeking to shy away from that. And I also indicated what prompted this investigation in the first place, which was that July 10 complaint. And that July 10 complaint, as it turns out, was incorrect because a member of the public, yes, can always call in or phone into the Integrity Commission with a complaint. When the Director of Investigation, as he is mandated to do by statute, now goes in to ferret out information and establish facts, he would have recognized that at some point that, okay, Andrew Holness is not a director or a shareholder in the entity. So contrary to what is set out in the allegations, that is not in fact so.
Which is what
However,
he said that. He said
Yes.
that.
So part of the report was the study.
What he said is that Dr. Holness is connected. Connected, not that he owns. He's connected by virtue of the history that you've outlined. And in fact, even in the conclusion and when reading through this particular report, apart from the initial allegation and apart from the connection that he says there is to the Prime Minister, everything else relates to the actual development. Yes, to Estate Bridge and to findings that there is some sort of misleading by one of the directors, it alleges, and then by the contractor. So what is the issue that the JLP has with this report then?
So good. So I want you to walk with me now in this instance, Emily.
Yes.
To the extent that you are attending upon an investigation and you are attending upon a development that is in progress, yes?
Yes.
And the material matter you are probing is whether there is any deviation having regard to what is going on at the construction site from what was permitted and signed off or agreed to between the developers and the KSAMC.
Yes.
In other words, the development approval. That is what you are essentially interrogating.
Yes.
Now, so your investigation turns on that premise, as it were. And what we're contending is that the Prime Minister, having regard to the investigation and it turning on, making a determination as to whether there is a deviation or non-conformance and so on, it really ought not to be embroiling the Prime Minister.
Who is embroiling the Prime Minister?
The report,
no,
Emily.
The report doesn't speak to the Prime Minister.
Tuesday evening. Say again?
The report is not saying the Prime Minister. If media reported the Prime Minister, the report has not really said the Prime Minister. Let me take a break though, Mr. Morgan. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you. Mr. Marlon Morgan is a communication task force member of the Jamaica Labour Party. Yes, Mr. Morgan.
So I'm contending, Emily, and for the benefit of the listeners, that the investigation on which the Director of Investigations embarked, yes, essentially turns on a determination as to whether the construction going on diverges from what was permitted or signed off on by the KSMC. Yes?
Agreed.
So the point is that if you have any issue or if there's a report to be penned, that should really touch and concern the directors of the entity and indeed the person identified as the contractor, in this case, a Mr. Nesbeth, as I understand it.
Yes.
So I accept, Emily, that my views on this matter may diverge from yours. I accept that. But what I am advancing, and for absolute clarity with the listeners, what I'm saying is that, to my mind, the Integrity Commission is seized of a particular dimension that a report will take on, to the extent that the name Andrew Holness is situated in it. Because I shudder to think, if you have a motor vehicle, Emily, and you divested yourself of that motor vehicle, you sold it, and that Subaru motor car, subsequent to you selling the car, just happens to have been involved in an accident in Clarendon, where the lives of 2 Lennon students were unfortunately snuffed out, yes? How can a person be doing a report on that accident and touching on matters touching and concerning that accident, and then situate Emily Crooks Shields' name in that report as though that is germane to the infraction that concerns the motor vehicle in question? So your previous ownership of the motor vehicle, to my mind, and as I said earlier, my views on the matter may diverge from yours. But what I am asserting is that, notwithstanding the antecedents involved, notwithstanding the fact that Emily Crooks Shields was the previous owner of this apartment complex, or the previous owner of this motor vehicle, the Subaru motor car that was running robot taxi, meeting an accident and killed 2 picnic. My view is that your prior ownership is not germane to the instant infraction. And in the case of the Beverly Hills construction, the material question and the instant quote-unquote infraction being probed is whether there's a deviation from what was approved. And the truth of the matter is that Estate Bridge, like any other company in Jamaica, is an entity duly incorporated here in Jamaica, and it has directors and it has shareholders. And when the DI took up himself, having received a complaint, and went to the KSAMC and thereafter went to Beverly Hills, Andrew Michael Holness is a person who has no interest in the entity in question, notwithstanding the antecedents.
Yes, and I think the report has made that point. So the problem you seem to be having, as I look through the report...
Why call the man name? That's
No, you can't. Listen, the man name was not called by the DI to start. The man's name was called by a complainant.
Yeah.
Yes, who said that Mr. Holness is the owner of property on which construction is being carried out contrary to the planning approval and building permit granted by KSAC. It also alleged, the person also alleged that Mr. Holness often requests the service from architecture to draw a blueprint that will be sent to KSAC, and a second will be drawn that will be used. And they said this was done for the Beverly Hills / Cherry Gardens. So these are the original complaints. What I hear you saying is that the DI, having satisfied himself by doing a tracing of the historical antecedents of the entity, and actually saying to us that the estate bridge is connected with Andrew Holness, that may have caused some problems for you as a member of the JLP Communication Task Force. But I do not know. But how else? But how else, Mr. Morgan? That is the lowest connection that the report could make because of Mr. Holness no longer being associated with the entity, and that happened in about 2022. That's the closest association they could make and leave it. They didn't elevate it to any higher level that should cause you problems.
I'll tell you why it's an issue, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, let's go back to the allegations. Yeah? You, and I've heard you from this platform, Emily, take umbrage to the kind of salacious and nasty veranda talk aspect of the culture and public discourse that has been emerging. So you will accept, Emily, that a lot of conjecture and rumor mongering and innuendo that people may engage in from time to time, and it may be good for veranda talk, may actually get distilled into an allegation that is advanced to the Integrity Commission. However, what I am advancing this morning is that the Integrity Commission, as an entity that ought to be outfitted and staffed by professional and competent persons, has a higher standard and responsibility than the persons who may be engaging in rumor mongering or speculation as to who owned what and all kinds of things.
And they discharge that responsibility by tracing what they're actually saying. I beg your pardon, Mr. Morgan. Their responses to these questions, the responses are: no, Mr. Holness is not the owner of the construction. 2, they claim the owner is Estate Bridge, but it is being carried out contrary to their approval. And I think the bigger point that you need to lament is this conclusion that the construction is being done contrary to their approval when they actually went there when the construction was going on. And the third question, the third issue is that Mr. Holness often requests service from architect and then present a second one. That is absolutely not so, because there's no finding of that nature.
Which is the point I was going on to make, Emily. So I started out by saying the Integrity Commission, as competent and well-constituted authority, have a higher duty of care. They have a higher responsibility than the average Joe on the street, who will sit on their veranda and chat people business and fearmonger and speculate on all kinds of things. So when an allegation comes to you, what good does it serve the public interest for you to literally situate the exact and verbatim allegation in a written report that will be there for posterity? It will be there in the records of the parliament, when you could have paraphrased the salacious and potentially defamatory aspect of the allegation.
No.
So, for example,
no,
Emily,
no.
What I'm saying,
you don't need to put an example. No, I have the example, Mr. Morgan. I don't think it is okay for them to somehow paraphrase what they're given. They start out with an allegation for transparency, they need to say what they got. They have said it, and maybe they need to be more clinical in saying these things were not proven and elevate them higher
All right,
up.
so Emily,
Yeah.
our views will diverge on this, but I'm putting it to you that a member of the public has no bridle, has no constraint, and can be very unfiltered in making an allegation. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes.
Cool. Do you agree with the very essence and subject matter and content of an allegation having the potential to defame and diminish a Jamaican citizen in the estimation of other well-thinking Jamaicans? Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, but that's not correct. I agree with that generally, but specifically in relation.
That's how I'm going to give you an example,
yes.
Emily.
But not only that. The whole idea of defamation within the context of the Integrity Commission, they have absolute immunity in relation.
I'm not questioning that, man. I'm not questioning it, and I'm mindful of that, which is why they have to be judicious in what they do. So I give you an example. If someone, being a typical rumor mongering and veranda talk Jamaican, says Emily Crooks Shields is undertaking a development project in Upper St. Andrew, and she is diverging from the building approval at the municipal corporation, but she's going to be using that apartment that she's constructing in furtherance of human trafficking. They're going to bring young girls in from Eastern Europe, some of whom will be minors, and they'll be engaging in human trafficking. Would you want that allegation distilled and situated in a report which lowers Emily Crooks Shields in the estimation of right-thinking Jamaicans? Do you think that is reasonable to you? Remember them alleged human trafficking, say you and whomever else I got in an Upper St. Andrew as part of a sex trafficking ring and having young girls who are underage from Romania and Lithuania and all of these places, Bulgaria and so on. Would you want that kind of nastiness to be taken verbatim, lifted from a little whistleblower who is perhaps motivated by political agenda or just mere malice, and have that situated in a report that will find its way to the Parliament of Jamaica? Would you be comfortable with that, Emily Crooks Shields?
Okay, so the point you're making now is just the
You can't just take a raw allegation and put it in a report.
quote of the report.
It's very injurious.
That by itself, you say, never mind the conclusion, which has found something completely contrary to what was alleged. Just the verbatim report of the allegation, you say that's problematic for you.
That is problematic for me because it may do any one of us who are law-abiding Jamaican citizens a disservice, because anybody can pick up the phone and say any kind of malicious, maligning, and nasty thing about Marlon Morgan. They may say it about Emily Crooks Shields. And I am wishing this morning, Emily, to commend the words of a particular pastor, Mr. Martin, back from Germany. He said, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
So what is it you...
Very instructive.
What is it you wish... How is it you wish the Integrity Commission in future...
Because let us not pretend as though we are intellectual eunuchs here. We know the politically charged environment within which we operate.
Yes, so I'm asking you, we have a minute to go. How is it you want them to quote allegations?
10 seconds of a minute. I'm using 10 seconds to say this. There are persons in Jamaica who are chomping at the bits because it is Andrew Holness today. But what if it is Mark Golding tomorrow? What I want for the Integrity Commission is for them to manifestly, and you are a lawyer, so you know how it works. Justice must not only be done, but must manifestly be seen to be done. So when the Integrity Commission, in furtherance of its mandate and in pursuits of its statutory obligations, is doing its work, it must do so in a way that is jurious and as opposed to injurious, and it must do so in a work that is entirely professional and it is manifestly above board.
All right.
That is what the Jamaica Labour Party and Marlon Morgan is contending this morning on the sound of RJR.
Can I ask you, as I go, whether any inspection of the premises has taken place since the Integrity Commission, perhaps in October, November or so of this year? Do you know? By the KSAMC, that
My
is.
understanding that is the case, but I am not the KSAMC is the competent authority. I will allow you in true confined journalistic traditions, investigative journalist traditions, to ferret that out from the KSMC.
All right.
But my brief tells me that the KSMC dispatched correspondence to the developers as recently as November, affirming that there are 2 bedrooms situated in each of those 4 townhouses.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. From Estate Bridge. I don't know that you can succeed on that. In that, he does not own the company. In fact, the company has a separate legal personality in law. He doesn't own it. He's not a beneficial owner. He's not a legal owner in it. But the recent antecedents of the company, based on the documents at Company's office and based on averments made by the Prime Minister, he's only since 2022, I believe, relinquished whatever holdings he had in that entity. So the highest that one can associate him with it is to say that he was connected, was connected with the entity. Whatever connection there is now is not a legal connection. There may be a familial connection in that interest in the property has been transferred to his son. But it's not a legal argument you make, it's some familial, and I don't think that one should try and make the arguments cloudy by seeking to have a clean break. Not legally, a clean connection break with the entity, because that really doesn't accord with truth. I think the problem the Integrity Commission has had in this report is that it framed as well its terms of reference around the particular allegation. And it should not have done that. Somebody calls you and they make an allegation, but you have to frame your investigation based on your statutory mandate and go do your job. So in other words, when I look at Section 33 of the Integrity Commission Act, it says the Director of Investigation shall, subject to 52(2), monitor where necessary, and where necessary, investigate in the manner prescribed by or under this Act the award, implementation, or termination of any government contract, and the grant, issue, variation, suspension, or revocation of any prescribed license, with a view to ensuring, in the case of a prescribed license, the circumstances of such grant, issue, variation, suspension, or revocation. You must investigate that those don't include impropriety or breach of any applicable law relating to procurement or other irregularity, and where appropriate, that the prescribed license is used in accordance with the terms and the conditions thereof. So in other words, you get a complaint from an anonymous person. You then have to go and say, okay, what is my mandate? My mandate is to investigate not the individual as a start, not the licensee as a start, But you start with the KSAMC in this instance, who is the issuer of the license, and to see how and under what circumstances it was issued. Is there any impropriety in the issuance of it? Because at the time the license was issued, one of the parties who had either beneficial ownership or whatever of the entity is a public official. Was there anything like that? You go down, you satisfy yourself on these things, and then now you say the license having been issued appropriately according to law. You're then looking to see how is it that the licensee is operating in the face of the license that was issued to it. And who is the licensee in this instance? The licensee is Estate Bridge. Yeah, so you really should have clear out Andrew Holness out of it. The person has made the allegation, but you have to put yourself in the law and clear out what you need to clear out. But what I find is that the terms of reference, look at what they start with. Whether there exists any development in Beverly Hills that was or were connected to Dr. Holness. That first term there, something not right about that. And if so, whether the requisite approvals were obtained for their construction. No. No. You do the background work. You realize, no, there was nothing related to Andrew Holness legally, but permission has been issued to Estate Bridge. You look at KSAMC, this is what they're supposed to do. When did the application go in from Estate Bridge? Were all of the processes above board? Yes, they were. And if they were above board, let me go and see now how the licensee has been doing the work on the ground in compliance with the terms of the license. And that's how you ferret it out. But they have made the substance of the complaint the central focus of the report. Yeah, even though it seems to be sort of askew the statutory mandate. I'm up on a break.